The house is now open for questions. Dhruv, please go ahead.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes,
Right.
you're audible and visible. Please go ahead.
Right. Thank you, sir, for your speech. So the latter half, the last 2 minutes of your speech focused on achievements of the judges and focused on achievements of them and spoke about how that doesn't make them narcissistic. So what is the relevance of that to what we are debating upon today? What is the relevance of that to social media influencers? What is the relevance of that to anything that we are discussing today?
Thank you so much, sir, for that question. And now let's understand where you went wrong. Your entire speech was based upon you judging people on being narcissistic on the basis of how what they are posting and how other people are posting. What not you did not understand is that it is a medical condition, and that is what I was trying to distinguish here. That people being influencing other people does not make them narcissistic, but just looking out for themselves as opportunities. That does not make them narcissistic, and that is what I was trying to prove through examples. And I hope that I've answered your question, sir.
Thank you, Speaker. Tanuvi, do we have time for another question?
Yes, we do.
Saksham, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, for the recognition. So there were two factual inaccuracies in your debate. The first was that you assumed narcissism to be a medical condition. Firstly, narcissism is a personality trait, it's a spectrum, and narcissistic personality disorder is an illness. And secondly, sir, you mentioned that influencing would be posting motivating, relatable content that adds value to others, but influencing is not always positive. So please justify both these things, because your entire debate was relied on these two facts, and they're both wrong.
Thank you, sir, for your question or what clarification you gave, but let's understand where you went wrong with it. Sir, firstly, when I talk about it being a medical condition, you need to understand that we are talking about prolonged narcissistic tendencies. And that is what I was advocating today, that having prolonged narcissistic tendencies is what a medical condition is, and posting or influencing people or looking out for publicizing does not make a person narcissist, because it is a medical condition which is prolonged. So it does not happen just like that. It is a prolonged process which can be cured as well. And answering the second part of your clarifying the second thing that you said, could you please repeat it if the chairperson allows?
Does the chair allow?
We won't be allowing any follow-up answers or questions. With this, we can move on to the next speaker. Nick, please go ahead.
I'd now like to call upon Khushi, who will be speaking for the motion.
Khushi, are you there? We'll wait for a couple of minutes. Khushi, are you there? We'll move on to the next speaker. Nick, please go ahead.
I'd like to call upon Sanvi, who will be speaking against the motion.
Can you see me? Am I audible?
You're audible, ma'am, and you're visible. Could you please shift your camera? The judges would prefer a clear view.
Okay, I'll just.
We'll wait for you.
Is it okay now?
Ma'am, you'll have to lower the screen of your device. Yes, it's fine. Please go ahead.
All right. Good morning to all.
Ma'am, just a minute. I'm really sorry to interrupt. You'll have to lower it a bit more.
Now is it fine?
A little bit more. I'm really sorry, but yes, it's fine. Please go ahead.
Good morning to all present here. I would like to share my views on the topic. The modern day life influence is only a publicity hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. Influencers do things that genuinely excites them. You all think becoming influencer is one of the fastest way to reach success, especially on Instagram, but it is absolutely not. It is hard for them to make a decent income. One can count on. It takes years for an influencer to establish themselves. Influencer constantly experiences burnout because there is constantly a need of excess whether something should be posted or should not be posted. It's hard to get your every move watched under a spotlight. If you make one wrong decision, people will find n number of reasons to criticize you and not and won't let you forget it. Some may do it. Some influencers do it because they find it as their passion, hobby. They do it so that they can share their expertise and establish their credibility. For some people who don't have passion for these things, will think that they're just doing it for the fame's sake and for attention and are being narcissist. Think about someone who just loves, say, mountain biking. They are expensive. With a desk job, he or she can afford a simple bike. But when he becomes a mountain bike influencer, he gets to ride on variety of bikes. Is he a narcissist? No, I clearly don't think he's a narcissist. He's doing it because he has a passion for it. He has a liking for it. This is a big misconception about the issue, about the lives of social media influencers, that they're narcissists and they do it just for fame's sake. How can you say that influencers are narcissists when you don't even know them in person? Maybe they have the traits of narcissists, but not completely are. You might be some average looking person who might appear pretty just by using some editing apps won't make him look like a narcissist. He's not a narcissist. The work that goes into storyboarding their videos, editing, and other key blogging can take a ton of hours. I don't think being an influencer is definitely a Monday through Friday 8-hour gig. Influencers are essentially entrepreneurs. They have a normal job. Influencers just do it because they find they want to turn their passion into profession. People, they can to talk about some real issues as well. Everyone take pictures, ton of pictures, as they love posing and posting pictures that do not make them look like they are self-centered or they are being narcissists. People not being narcissists do it because they feel contentment out of it. When the influencers try to promote something positive just to make other person's life better, they're being empathic. They're just showing empathy and not being a narcissist. And also, everyone thinks that they are better than others in some or the other aspect. Does that make them a narcissist? I completely disagree with that. Bringing a positive change in a person's life is what I think influencers believe in. They provide a deeper understanding of an individual's opinion and experiences of consumers concerning influencer marketing. It is a way to raise awareness and engage with an audience that would like to hear about their things. Some influencers like Candy Fraser focuses on girl empowerment. He says influencers can have a positive influence on their follower body image by promoting the ideas of positivity and confidence. Fraser even said that that her personal goal while blogging is to have a positive impact on his or her followers. I personally feel influencers can be the role models. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam. The house is now open for questions. Sudhakar, please go ahead.
Ma'am, you came here to give us very elaborate examples and define a person or the meaning of narcissist to a very great detail. But wouldn't it, like, because if you're taking or governing this topic only to social media, I feel that I feel that the topic is more. It also includes business, trade, and all other factors. And influencer, the word influences by virtue does demarcate to that spot. And in such a place of business and all, where you require to bid or where you have to prove that your product is the best or what you're giving or what you're showing is the best, I believe that you have to be narcissist in your ways. Please justify.
With the due permission of the chair, I would like to answer.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I would like to say that if you want to influence about something, you don't have to clearly be a narcissist about it. You can do it without being a narcissist. We talk about certain things, but we talk about certain things which are not good, or maybe they are good, but that doesn't make us a narcissist, or nor we are self-centered about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanvi, do we have time for another question?
Yes, there's time.
Pradyuman, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your speech, ma'am. Ma'am, your speech was based around the idea that just because influencers work hard, they are not narcissists. First, considering the fact that working hard doesn't automatically give you a good personality, and secondly, considering that today's influencers, a lot of work, they devote a lot of their time and work to simply gaining prominence on social media or whatever medium that will support them, instead of actually working out a system of thought that will help out others. Also considering that influence correlates to social work, how can you justify your statement that just because influencers work hard, they are not narcissists?
I'm clearly not saying that they work hard and that makes them that doesn't make them a narcissist. It's just that I'm trying to tell you that they work hard, and it's not an easy thing. And also I'm trying to say that they just don't do it for the sake of fame or attention. They do it so that they can inspire people to do good things. And as I gave the example of Kennedy Fraser, who clearly said that I clearly post or blog so that my followers get inspired in a positive way.
Thank you, ma'am. We can move to Khushi if her camera and microphone are working. Khushi? Khushi, are you able to present your arguments? There seem to be some technical issues with Khushi's device. I think we'll move on to the next speaker. Nick?
I'd like to call upon Yashika Yadav, who will be speaking for the motion.
Am I audible and visible?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, you're audible and visible. Please proceed.
Okay. Good morning to judges, teachers, and fellow participants. Today, I will be speaking for the motion on the topic modern day influencers. Modern day influencer is only a publicity-hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. I would like to define a few terms of the topic. First, an influencer. Who is an influencer? Ladies and gentlemen, an influencer is a thing or a person that influences another. Next, I would like to define publicity hungry. A publicity hungry person is one who craves attention of the public. Now, I would like to define the meaning of a modern day influencer. A modern day influencer is the current generation of influencers who have been mostly given a following because of TikTok and YouTube. Ever wonder why all social media influencers are always what society defines as good looking? Well, that is because even the social media algorithm is made such that people with particular appearances who will please the human eye will get more likes and thus more followers. This is common knowledge, and thus these people will often develop narcissistic feelings and feelings of superiority. Research carried out by Newport Institute states that the higher amount of social media use predicts higher level of grandiose narcissism, that is, feelings of superiority. Many influencers use their title as a cover for carrying out deeds such as drugs, fist fights, bullying, shamming, etc. While at the same time, they will use these dramas to catch more attention towards themselves and thus increasing their income, if not their followers. I will present the example of Bryce Hall to support my argument. It is no secret that Bryce Hall loves to spark controversy. He was arrested on drug-related charges in the past, and according to Google Trends, this spiked his social media presence so much that he was the most Googled person on the day of the incident. Many influencers are in it for the freebies and money. They collaborate with small businesses for free stuff and don't promote it enough, or if they collaborate with bigger companies, then they are in it for the fame. Countless scandals like this have popped up on the internet, so much so that they are too much to count. Then they use their money and power to suppress the smaller businesses to speak up about it or just post an apology video for a restart from their followers. Of course, everything rounds up to selfies and money. In the end, I would like to conclude saying that to many influencers, it is about their faces being recognized in public and not the Samartian march to goodwill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The house is now open for questions. Saksham, please go ahead with your question.
Right. Thank you so much, Chair, for the recognition. Madam Speaker, side opposition has been asking the proposition bench this one question time and again, and no one has been able to justify the stance particularly. You yourself defined an influencer as a person or a thing who has the capability of influencing another, yet you only talked about a couple of social media influencers. Why is side proposition limiting the debate constantly, and why is nobody able to give a justification why they're only talking about social media influencers? Please clarify.
Thank you for your question. With the permission of the chair, may I please answer?
Please go ahead.
I'm not sure if you paid attention to the topic of the debate, but it's actually modern day influencers. So from what I know, that modern day influencers are those which are influencing the current generation, and those are the people who are gaining fame from TikTok and YouTube. And that is why most of the influences of the current generation are related to social media. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanuvi, do we have time for another question?
Yeah, we have time.
Kinjalak, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you so much, sir. Here I'm going to correct you a little bit. I'm so sorry, but it's Kinjalk. Thank you.
My apologies, sir. Please proceed with your question.
Fine. Thank you, ma'am, for your speech. Now, whatever categories, whatever traits that you told were definitely selfish traits that you talked about. But there is a lot of difference between selfish traits and narcissistic tendencies. So how do you justify that?
Thank you for your question. With the permission of the chair.
Please go ahead.
I would say selfish tendencies and narcissistic tendencies, both of them are pretty interlinked. If somebody narcissistic, if they are influencing, of course they would be selfish because they want to promote themselves more. And that relates to them wanting to collaborate with other people and gaining more money and more fame, once again, in a roundabout. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. We can now proceed to the next speaker.
I'd now like to call upon Manya, who will be speaking against the motion.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Thank you so much for the recognition. Greetings to the respected judges.
Just a minute. I'm really sorry, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you're visible. Please proceed.
All right. Thank you. Greetings to the respected judges, teachers, and my worthy opponents. Today, I, Manya Bansal from the Lawrence School, Sonar, will enlighten you to my opinion against the topic that the modern day influencer is only a publicity-hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. Firstly, we from the side opposition would like to highlight this fact for the proposition that an influencer is one who influences, and it is on us who we want to be influenced by and about what. And that everybody has a freedom of speech as to what they want to say and show. And we cannot tell them to stop. But what we can do is choose who we want to give attention to. Therefore, calling all influencers generally narcissistic would be highly hypocritical and contradictory, since it is us, the general public, who inflate their egos if we do. Cutting straight to the chase, we would like to talk about how, along with the entertainment that influencers provide, many also create a safe space and community for their followers. They spread positive messages that they deeply believe in and they're not just in it for the freebies. Influencers have been known to use their platform for the greater good by educating people on social agendas, speaking about oppressions and minorities, and assisting people in finding help in during crises such as the COVID-19, where many Indian influencers created a platform that helped people reach out for beds and oxygen when needed. They support causes and charities that draw people to them, hence also opposing the fact that they have a personal agenda to whatever they do. We as opposition vehemently disagree with the statement that says that all influencers are narcissistic, because these days it is those who show vulnerability, those who show their flaws and speak up and educate people about trauma are the ones who the general public is more drawn to. They don't portray a fake image, and this is what the people like, and that is why people look up to them. By doing so, they also break the concept of an ideal and a perfect image, which is something that creates insecurity in many of the teenagers these days. It will also be very wrong to call somebody narcissistic solely because they are confident in their body and would like to share an aspect of their lives with the world. Not all influencers want attention for ulterior motives. Many times it is just a platform for them to step into the entertainment industry to pursue their dreams. As much as it might seem that all influencers do is click photos and make videos, we must understand that it is just like any other job, and it takes time, effort, and money. We think about the pros of influencing and how they live a glorious life and are very famous, but we forget the fact that they are under constant media scrutiny and receive so much hate for every single mistake or misunderstanding. They receive constant hate about their appearances and work, which often also affect their state of mind and may even lead to depression. One really cannot think of oneself as the best if they are constantly criticized, because they are human after all. With this thought, I rest my case, but not my cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. The house is now open for questions. Dhruv, please go ahead with your question.
Ma'am, the job of an influencer in essence has two aspects to it. One is they want to influence other people's lives. Number two is they want to gain popularity. Body dysmorphia and all of that aside, don't both of these aspects require them to portray themselves, to portray their individuality and to portray their uniqueness to others in terms of promoting body dysmorphia, in terms of promoting all of these other things, which by in itself is a narcissistic personality disorder, keeping the biological disease aside?
So when we talk about showcasing somebody's body, I'm sure you have an Instagram account, you have social media. Everybody uses social media these days. If somebody is confident in their body and they want to showcase an aspect of their lives to the general public, that does not mean that they are trying to influence people to look like them. What they're doing is they're showing that yes, they feel confident in their body. They're saying that yes, I feel beautiful and I'm trying to showcase this to the world. But this does not mean that they're directly trying to tell people that what I am looking like is the only definition of beautiful, and if somebody who looks different from that is not beautiful. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move on to the next question. Sudhakar, please ask your question.
Ma'am, you came here to give a very elaborate, or your side has come here to give a very elaborate speech on how good they, or how some influences are doing good for the society. But I would like to ask you a question. Isn't it their personal agenda to do it? Isn't it their personal reason or their personal wanting that they make it? Please justify.
So whatever job you have, there is a reason that you are doing that job. If somebody is a doctor, then obviously their personal agenda is to be a doctor. They like to be a doctor. So if somebody wants to be an influencer, they like to create content. They like to talk to people. They like to make people happy. So that is what they're doing. That is a personal agenda, because honestly, we're all humans and there is some kind of selfish cause to the background, but you can't call it a personal agenda in the sense that somebody will try to push people down just to put themselves up. That is that when we talk about narcissism, that then the personal agenda that you are trying to mention comes into play. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Tanuvi, do we have time for another question?
She has been asked both of her questions.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll proceed to the next speaker. Nick, please go ahead.
I'd now like to call upon Viva, who will be speaking for the motion.
Good morning to one and all present here. Here are my views on this topic. Social media creates a perfect playground for narcissistic behavior. If someone would literally sit in a lab and create a perfect tool for narcissist people to sit somewhere to get validation and supply they need, and the validation and the supply for every damn thing they do, from buying groceries to cooking dinner, that tool would be social media. Narcissistic personalities are constantly seeking for validation. Here, people have started developing and loving their false self more than the real self. Narcissists are better at maintaining their false self because they live in their false self. Social media has become a home for them. Social media almost became like a narcissist. It left people thinking they're not good enough. Not only do narcissists use social media to make themselves feel good, but they also log on to make others feel bad. Anyone on social media is basically in a narcissistically abused relationship with social media itself. Yes, modern day influencer is only a publicity hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. Let me prove this to you. I hope all of us are familiar to the social media blogger Logan Paul. Filming in Japan's suicide forest, Paul allegedly stumbled across and filmed a lifeless body of a man who had taken his own life. He abused his platform and clearly stepped across a line of basic decency and humanity. If he had any moral sense of right and wrong or being a part of a larger community beyond himself, he wouldn't clearly upload that video. I question whether he stumbled across that tragic lifeless body or was it a deliberate attempt at a shock value to get more clicks through his followers. The first words in Logan's Japan suicide videos were, "This is the first of me." This type of self-absorbed narcissistic view is the dark side of social media. Narcissistic people yet blame the world for the mess they've made, the life that they've been faking, and complaining about the world that couldn't deliver the super fabulous life that they've been portraying. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The house is now open for questions. Paranta, please go ahead with your question.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Please go ahead.
So, a part of your speech was talking about the video which Logan Paul uploaded about Japan and his actions of. Let me elaborate some of his actions. His actions were wearing a Pikachu dress and trying to shit over cars. And his another action was to laugh at the dead forest. And talking about those actions were not actually under the control of Logan Paul. To be clear and precise, those actions were controlled by the business company, were under the control of the business company which Logan Paul was a part of and from which Logan Paul gets all his investments. Please comment on the fact that actions like these are caused to create controversy so that those businesses can benefit out of those controversies, which drag the influencers and which creates the tag of narcissist on those influencers.
Yes, being a vlogger is always, so being a vlogger is basically you have a creative control, or you are your boss. Any company hiring you doesn't always enforce of doing something that they don't want to do. So you always have an option of things and actions that you don't want to do. I think that Logan Paul could have not done the things that he did, because if you have basic humanity, he could have just backed out of the company, because money was more important, followers were more important than the thinking that was gone behind the action is the reason why he stepped forward and did what he did. So I hope that justifies and answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanavi, do we have time for another question?
Yes, we have time.
Pradyuman, please proceed with your question.
Thank you for your speech, ma'am. In your speech, you spoke about how these influencers seek validation and are in a toxic relationship with social media. Putting aside the fact that that is a very human trait and that all of us are affected by seeking validation because that is how humans are structured. Do you realize that it is possible to be spiritually corrupted by fame, attention, and money? and still not be a narcissist, because you are not completely free in your actions when something external to you is presented to you.
Could you please repeat the last part? I couldn't comprehend what you said.
Ma'am, considering the fact that you spoke about how there's a toxic relationship between social media influencers and social media, do you not realize that it is possible to be spiritually corrupted by fame, attention, and money, and lose your very free will and commit acts that you wouldn't normally commit?
Yeah, I would like to answer that question. And that is the exact difference of being an influencer and being a person who is watching the influencer. Because so this job comes along with a lot of pressure. So like you said, validation is a very human, a very humanly trait. And that is exactly, and being spiritually corrupted, and that's where you have to separate how what you that's where you have to separate from the others, because you have to that okay, I'll put this in a simpler words. Because you have to be different to be an influencer. There has to be something that keeps you apart from the general population or the crowd. So you not letting the action affect you is because you're an influencer. You have to be different from others. You have to have that humanly trait, but you also have to make sure that that doesn't affect your action on social media. And that's exactly a blogger or a vlogger.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, please note, unparliamentary language is not appreciated within the House. We will be moving on to the next speaker. Nick?
I'd now like to call upon Ridhima, who will be speaking against the motion.
Do you use any social media platforms? Of course you do. It would be weird if you didn't, especially in today's society with over 3 billion people using social media platforms worldwide. The rise of social media platforms has given a birth to a machine for us to write and post pictures. This explains why many people nowadays cannot get through their day without checking their phones and scrolling through Instagram feeds, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Some people, however, have gained immense popularity on these sites for their knowledge on a specific topic. These people have a substantial following and are influencers. Influencers are more than just influential people. The modern equivalent of with great power comes great responsibility would probably be with great influence comes great responsibility. Good morning to everyone present here. I, Ridhima Agrawal from Mussoorie International School, would like to speak against the motion. I strongly believe that these celebrities only work towards a personal agenda. We're all aware that the past 2 years have been difficult on people from across the globe. With lack of facilities such as oxygen cylinders and ICU beds, the influencer community used their platform to help connect those in need to those who were willing to give. It helped raise funds to those who couldn't afford these new injections and treatments. If it weren't for the online network, many lives would have been taken away because of the lack of reach. From global campaigns and popular hashtags promoting body image advocacy to online groups that encourage self-love at any size, social media influencers create a sense of community that makes it easier for us to tackle body issues, and it just feels less isolating because you know that there are many others who go through the exact same thing. Recently, hashtag support small business has been widely used by influencers. With the number of population being unemployed now and a fall in profits has led to a growth in small businesses and that support the local community. Clearly, these are not narcissistic traits. If you think that being an influencer seems like a permanent vacation, that couldn't be further from the truth. These influencers are working hard to represent people of every age, gender, nationality, and sexual background. I believe if you do not relate to their content, don't put them down, because you never know who's positively impacted from their message. influencers are here to stay, whether you like it or not. So let's make way for these new age entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The house is now open for questions. Saksham, please proceed with your question.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the recognition. Madam Speaker, your debate relied and revolved around the fact that a person who promotes social change and promotes social causes is not a narcissist. But that in no way is right, because even narcissist, even a person who falls, let's say, slightly tilted on the spectrum of narcissism, can also promote social change. These two things are in no way related. So can you please justify?
Thank you for your question. What I mean to say is that, helping, when the entire internet community has come together to help people and to bring a positive change, they must have a greater heart than only thinking about themselves. I think their greater idea is to promote self-love and confidence among people, which is why I don't think it is ideal to term them as narcissists.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanuvi, do we have time for another question?
Yes, there's time.
Kartike, please proceed with your question.
Ma'am, with reference to what you spoke, that influencers are supporting small businesses. Ma'am, how is posting a mirror selfie with using the hashtag support small business actually helping those small businesses? Please comment.
You just said that, how does posting a mirror selfie with that hashtag help a small business grow? But that is exactly what happens when they post a picture. That is how we view. That is how we get aware that these small businesses do exist, and that is how we get to know them, which is why you visit their site through their Instagram handles, and you get to know about a business. But also, it is these influencers have not only posted selfies and used a simple hashtag, but they have explained why these small businesses are important for our local community, especially in these tough times. And to be honest, that is how I have gained that knowledge.
Thank you, ma'am. We can proceed to the next speaker, Nick.
I'd now like to call upon Janvi, who will be presenting the views for the motion.
With the respect to the chair, may I begin?
Yes, you're audible and visible. Please proceed.
Thank you. Narcissus would have loved social media and the ability to see his image reflected back at him on platforms such as Instagram, in pictures and posts, all searchable with hashtags and keywords. Narcissus would have died in front of his computer screen with a mouse in one hand and a smartphone in the other. Good morning, respected judges, my worthy opponents and audience. I, Janvi Jain from Vantage Hall, am here to represent the stance of proposition on the set motion, that is, the modern day influencer is only a publicity-hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. Beyond the myth, we have narcissists to thank for the often used term that describes his obsession with seeing ourselves on social media. Narcissism. Today's narcissist is not a myth. He or she is alive and well and are insatiably hungry for meaningless attention. Modern day influencers are responsible for influencing the common people. And when these modern day influencers are given a position, are given a platform to raise their point, they gain this form of superiority, which imminently leads to have this sense of narcissism. If we consider 25 years back, we used to admire Indira Gandhi, we used to admire Margaret Thatcher and all more such eminent personalities. People admired them, but now there are prime ministers, other ministers, etc., and other eminent public figures whose lives are exposed and they are trolled. And this did not only happen because of common people behind their touchscreen mobile phones, but because some influencers had the nerve to troll these eminent figures and influence their audience to do the same. So this create, and All of this trolling, all of this criticizing creates a shallow competition amongst influencers themselves, and leading each parties to troll and criticize each other. And ladies and gentlemen, by criticizing, I do not mean constructive criticism. I mean straight up bullying. They criticize each other only to project their superiority. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's world, respect and admiration no longer exist. I am ashamed to say this. Like for an example, if we consider Rahul Gandhi, some time back, Rahul Gandhi went to Kerala, and when he was coming back, he noticed an air ambulance and asked a personnel about it, and he got informed that a lady got a heart attack in a relief camp. So the air ambulance is there to take her for her treatment. And after listing, Rahul Gandhi decided to wait and let the ambulance to take off first. He waited for 30 minutes there. And ladies and gentlemen, I agree this is not a very big thing for a politician to do, but I know there are a lot of incidents in which a patient lost his life due to the VVIP movement, and there are a lot of politicians who do not care about anybody. But this news doesn't go viral like the jokes and memes go viral on Rahul Gandhi. You always saw jokes and memes on Rahul Gandhi, and sometimes he really did something wrong, but always making fun of him is not good. I'm not a fan of Rahul Gandhi, but when someone did something good, they should be praised and appreciated for it. And if you think Rahul Gandhi is not good as a prime minister, then you have the power to not vote. But instead, you are influenced by these influencers, these politicians who do not like Rahul Gandhi because they consider him as a competition. So you're influenced for not voting for him and trolling him. And yes, the opposition raise up repetitive points about how there are other influencers. They raise awareness and are emotionally connected with their audience, and how the proposition hates and envies these influencers. And there is no doubt that people here, all these ladies and gentlemen hearing me here right now, may label me as a cynic, but I think the real cynicism is how human tragedies have been converted into content for Facebook and Instagram and a promotional opportunity for the people using it, showing their considerate sides. In November 2015, when a terrorist attack happened in Paris, Facebook permitted users to use a layer of translucent French flag over their profile picture. How is that relevant? How is adding a black screen or adding a flag of that particular country showing remorse for the people who are dead? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The house is now open for questions. Parantap, please go ahead with your question.
Miss Speaker, you were talking about some great personalities like Margaret Thatcher and Indira Gandhi, those people who were admired within their country. Let me present you another very, very great personality who was also admired in his country and was considered one of the biggest narcissists in the world. His name was Adolf Hitler, and he was admired for his ambition for Germany, and he was also admired for his creations, inventions, and for his biggest World War tactic, the usage of jet streams. Do you still justify that these trolling of these great personalities wasn't necessary, and rather than bullying of these great personalities would lead to no outcome?
I'm sorry. Back then, during the time of Adolf Hitler, social media did not exist. The idea of influence, and if we consider Adolf Hitler, he influenced people to kill Jews. How is that not? How is he not superior? How is he not showing this form of narcissist that? I'm sorry. Can you repeat it once? I misinterpreted the question for a second.
Parantap, can you please repeat your question? Parantap?
I'm so sorry, I was muted. I'm so sorry. So the great personalities which you mentioned in your speech, like Indira Gandhi and Margaret Thatcher, were acknowledged and admired in their own country. So same way, Adolf Hitler was also admired in his own country, which is the Germans. And the point of the person was admired for several reasons. But one of the biggest reasons why he was admired was as a narcissist, his ambition for Germany, which led to World War. And do you still think that at that time, where wasn't wasn't online trolling and bullying necessary to pull down leaders like Adolf Hitler so that they do not take these ambitious steps?
Mr. Speaker, if we had there could be pros and cons. There could be another scenario as well. Instead of being trolled and him being pulled down, he would have received more recognition for his attitude, for his work, because he had influenced so many people that Jews are bad, Jews are Jews are not the perfect citizens of that country. So there could have been a whole different scenario for it. And if it had been that he was pulled down, there could have been somebody else who would come up and did the same thing. And Margaret Thatcher and Indira Gandhi were recognized for their well-to-do situations, for their good activities. They were not narcissists. I mean, they could have been, but they were not. They worked for the people. They didn't have a personal agenda, whereas Adolf Hitler did.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanavi, do we have time for another question?
We don't.
We'll move on to the next speaker then. Nick?
Excuse me, sir, Chairperson.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt you, but could you just clarify what team number or participant number we're on right now?
We are on the participant number 22 out of 24. However, we have two more speakers who will be presenting their arguments after the conclusion of the 24th speaker.
Right, thank you.
No problem, sir. Nick, can we proceed with the next speaker?
Yes, I'd now like to call upon Ananya, who will be presenting her views against the motion.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
Thank you. Influence isn't the same as popularity. Influence drives action. Influencers are change agents. A very good afternoon to this August gathering. The motion under consideration today is the modern day influencer is only a publicity hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. And I strongly stand against this motion. We are currently going through a revolutionary shift. First, there was the Industrial Revolution, followed by the mass media revolution, and now we are in the digital revolution. If you think about it, advertising, it stayed relatively the same for about 50 years until the internet and social media influencers came into play. When was the last time you bought something because you saw a newspaper ad or a billboard? Ever since the outbreak of the pandemic, the internet has been instrumental in keeping the world up and running. Social media and the influencers involved especially have become the fuel that has helped businesses and brands thrive, with many investing heavily in digital marketing to widen their reach. Today, more and more businesses are harnessing the potential of the medium to market themselves. We have witnessed 7 times growth than the last year. Influencers help us to be socially and politically aware, as they are better content curator and opinion gatherer. Ladies and gentlemen, a large number of sex educators like Ligon are using Instagram to bridge a gap between the unrealistic expectations of sex peddled by pornography and the limited remit of sex education within schools. Platforms like YouTube, Instagram, etc. are choice for young Indians to express their political and personal views. Instagram has 6.9 crore users in India, and more than 70% of its users globally are less than 35 years of age. Thus, it's easier to relate with someone same age group as you. Let's not forget about influencers who motivate us and support us emotionally. Last year was a wreck for the board classes because we were held back at a hook of whether boards would happen or not happen. Parental pressure is always there in most cases. To keep us motivated and handle our mental state when we would be a nerve wreck, my friends and I would sit and watch videos of Sandeep Maheshwari, one very known Indian influencer. Not just 4 kids sitting together are influenced. Instead, millions of kids every day are. How is it that the influencer is a publicity hungry narcissist? An influencer is someone who can influence others. By this definition, young teachers must be considered influencers too. Somebody who imparts knowledge, someone whose position has been kept above God are our teachers. And here we are calling them publicity hungry narcissists. Sport persons are influencers too. And I'm sure Thawani Ben Patel won a silver in Tokyo Paralympics from her wheelchair would influence many and instill hope and action. Is my opposition trying to state that the entire nation taking pride is a personal agenda? And our sportswoman is a publicity-hungry narcissist? Not at all. Not all can be painted with the same brush, ladies and gentlemen. Modern-day influencers have their requirements, such as financial needs as well, which cannot be portrayed as self-agenda, as they count as the very basics of any employed person. The industry has been growing at a 16% compound annual growth since 2016. Between 2017 and 18 alone, there was 33% increase in content marketing jobs. And Google researches for the term content marketing job have been steadily increasing. We are told to earn our bread from an occupation that passionates us. For most influencers, it's content creating. Why snatch that liberty away from them and term it as personal agendas or call them narcissists? With that, I'd like to rest my case. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. The house is now open for questions. Dhruv, please go ahead with your question.
Ma'am, first of all, I'd like to clarify that influencers is a profession, ma'am. The Paralympics and ma'am, the sports persons who influence other people by their own hard work don't fall under this category. Ma'am, my question to you refers to the fact of the part of your speech where you said that you can rely on influencers to get news or political news and to be more aware. Ma'am, my question to you is simple. Would you rather listen to someone qualified on CNN, or would you rather listen to someone who's speaking second-handedly, who's just giving you rose-tinted pictures through rose-tinted glasses and have unreliable information being fed to you?
Thank you for your question, Sir Speaker. Firstly, for the statement that you made that Paralympics cannot be considered as influencing, the one who won it would go to schools, would go to villages and talk about their achievements, thus influencing the people, the people residing in that place or the people studying in that institution. How can you not say it's not called influencing? And coming to your question, sir, could you please repeat it? I'm sorry, I forgot just the later half of it. Your question, sir.
Chair, am I allowed to do that?
Yes, please repeat the last part of your question for the speaker, please.
Right. My question, the last part of my question referred to the part of your speech where you said that we can rely on influencers for political information and be more aware. In a concise manner, would you rather listen to someone who's well educated and well qualified in a field as someone like a reporter on CNN, or would you rather listen to rose-tinted pictures being painted by these influencers?
So we must rely on authenticated sources. The influencer must, the influencers whose reels or posts or such things are trending usually add their sources from which they have derived that information. So that depends upon the viewer, that you must authenticate it. I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanuvi, do we still have time for another question?
Yes, we do.
Sudhakar, please go ahead with your question.
Madam Speaker, you came up here and in a very elaborate way told that every person or any person who is coming here is in a way you're saying that it is not a narcissist. But you're actually contradicting yourself, because the person is actually kind of a narcissist only because he knows that he's the best in the field. Yes, because he knows he's the best in the field. Hence, that's why he's actually acting as a motivational speaker or an influencer or with his own personal agenda. And he's actually proved himself, his mettle, his capabilities. But in one way, he's also a narcissist only, best in his own way.
So if you are able to derive a piece of information from that influencer, if that influencer has proved his or her potential, that why are we actually calling them a narcissist? If he or she is benefiting you, if he or she is helping you in your day-to-day life, then calling them narcissist is wrong at your part. I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you. I'd now like to move on to the next speaker. That would be Akhilesh, and he'll be speaking for the motion.
So, am I visible?
Yes, you're both visible and audible.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm 100% sure that this whole house can agree on one simple thing, and that is a narcissist has a personal agenda behind what he's doing. He has a personal reason and a personal justification that he'll give afterwards. Now, first of all, narrowing down the influences to social media. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure that we all have noticed that how these social media influencers promise to their followers that if the followers will share their post, like and comment on it, then the influencers will follow back or will reply them back. Well, first of all, it's all just a lie, because these influencers just want to increase their broadcasting. They just want to use the audience as a means to an end. They just want to use the public to reach at the fame. Because in, do you all really believe that an influencer having 20 million followers will care about you, will care to reply you that you have shared? Of course not. Now, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, narrowing down the influences to the political sphere of the world. I'm sure that you all must remember that the last election of United States, when Donald Trump stood as a candidate for the president of US. What happened? Ladies and gentlemen, just tell me two of the most narcissist people that come from the Democratic and the Republican primaries. From the Democratic, it is Donald Trump, who is a classic vulnerable narcissist. And from the Republican, it is Hillary Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen, the public knew. During the election, some part of the public preferred Trump as the president and the other part preferred Hillary Clinton. Even though the other part knew that the country couldn't stand the sight of Hillary Clinton. But we all know that still, when Donald Trump won, what did he do? What did he do to the United States? Ladies and gentlemen, my point here is that when narcissism is put into play, instead of development, instead of bringing social changes, it brings more of damage. Note the word more. I'm not saying that narcissism will bring only damage. It will bring social change, but the more damage will be brought. Now, it is not hard to notice that how much of me has become a part of a world. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's time, projecting one's status at the cost of others, because we do not care that even though what we are uploading will damage the public or not, unless and until it is good for us. Now, moving on to my second constructor, which is personality disorder. Ladies and gentlemen, any influencer, be it a politician, be it a social media one, was a normal person. But why did he become a narcissist? He became one because he couldn't manage his public life and his private life. That is why he started mixing his private life with the public life. But these people do not know that how it affects the public, how it affects the young minds. Because first of all, these influencers are attracted to social media because they don't want to live in a reality world. But they also affect the youngsters because now these youngsters are attracted to these social media influencers and would rather spend much more time with the fake friends on social media than make relations with the real ones. With this, I'm proud to propose a motion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The house is now open for questions. Kinjal, please proceed with your question.
Thank you, sir, for your speech. Now you talked about clickbaits, the tactics that you talk about. People are influencers asking people to comment and like on their post so that they'll follow them back. So these are known as clickbaits, and these are certain tactics which are implied by the influencers. Sir, this makes an influencer an opportunist. How does it make an influencer a narcissist? Because that is what we are discussing in today's debate.
So first of all, let me clarify who is a narcissist. Narcissist is someone who is self-obsessed with him, who just thinks about himself or herself, who doesn't care what other think or who doesn't care about others. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now tell me that if you, let's say you follow an influencer, okay, he has 3 million followers and he asks you to share his post and comment on and like on it, and he will reply you back. Would you still believe that out of those 3 million followers, he will reply you specifically that thank you for sharing my post? No, he will use you as just a means to an end. He will just use you as broadcasting himself or herself. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir. Tanuvi, do we have time for another question?
Yes, we do.
Pradyuman, please proceed with your question.
So in your speech, you spoke about how, thank you for your speech. In your speech, you spoke about how influencers cannot cater to the private wishes or the private messages of every one of their listeners. Putting aside the fact that that is a given because you literally cannot reply to everybody who texts you, there are several influencers like Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, who's a clinical psychologist, and Mark Manson, who is an esteemed individual and member of the self-help industry, who regularly respond to their mails. And if they're not being able to respond to every mail, they raise these issues in their speeches, in their books. How can you justify your statement considering that you have completely generalized this very aspect of influencers? Thank you.
Now, sir, the influences that you named, they are the ones that reply, but they aren't in large amount. They are just a couple of few who do reply it and who do raise issues. But I'm talking about the other section of influencers that do not even mention in their speeches, like the influencers you mentioned, that they haven't replied. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nick, we can move on to the next speaker.
I'd now like to call upon Parantab, who will be speaking against the motion.
The chair, I have a question. How much is the speaking time? Like how many minutes?
You have 4 minutes. 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, there will be a warning bell, which will tell you to wind up your arguments. In the last 1 minute, you are requested to wind up your arguments. And any arguments after the final bell, that's at the 4th minute, will not be considered by the judges.
Thank you, Chair.
Please proceed.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes, you're visible and audible. You can proceed with your arguments.
With the due permission of the Chair. I acknowledge everybody's views on the topic. The modern day influencers is only a publicity hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. And I strictly oppose the motion. Now, coming down to the first point or the first question which was asked to side opposition, why only social media and why mostly social media? Talking about everybody can accept the fact that social media is the biggest platform where an individual can connect to a lot of people at the same time, where an individual can have an influence over a lot of people at a similar time. Now, coming down to the second question asked about why only and the biggest question in today's debate and the biggest clash in today's debate was that between the influencers who keep on influencing people in a positive way and others who who actually post mirror selfies, who try to post their personal life and get views out of it. Now, coming down to the points of profession versus these are the basic arguments of profession versus private life. And when we talk about profession versus private life, according to side proposition, if we mix them, lawyers will be called liars, politicians will be called Satan, doctors will be called the harsh and human publicans, and most of all, the people will be called the idiots. And moreover, the people would actually be called narcissists, because when we are trying to live two separate lives, because every person is trying to live two separate lives, a private life and a personal life. And that is what we need to understand. According to side proposition, if a person is living in two different worlds, a person is living in two different areas, that person becomes a narcissist. And according to side proposition's definition of a person living as narcissist, then the only person who does not deserve to be called a narcissist are the influencers, because those are the ones who are mixing their private life and public life and showcasing them as one single life. Now coming down to the point of why narcissist influencer does not remain an influencer at all, because once a person becomes narcissist, once a person start admiring itself, that person loses his audience. That person, when he started to crave attention, the people get more detached from that person, the people feel less relatable to that person, and that's why that person keep losing the audience. And nobody can deny the fact that an influencer is nothing without his audience, and once his audience is lost, he has no longer a right to be called an influencer. That is, now this leads to my bold assumption of how an influencer is just like a democratic leader. An influencer who needs to hold his audience, a democratic leader needs to hold his audience for his votes. And that is why I believe that an influencer and a democratic leader had a lot common. Now, and one another similar thing is that both the influencers and the democracy leaders don't know how to read or how to write perfectly on a piece of paper. Now, coming down to the fact of on paper, the world's largest democracy on paper, which is called China, had a movement, Me Too movement, for the rights of women. And that movement shows the influence of what social media can have. That movement was started in 2018, which led to a civil case in 2019 to amend the constitution of China, which has been a very big supreme power in China, and that was taken down. Article 25 was taken down, which was a very big win for China. Another case in China was about gaming, how a person was not allowed to play outside games. And that leads to my another point of GameStop, another very big influence of Reddit users, a very big influence of Reddit users, which led to the downfall of a company called Marvin's Capital, that company which was shortening the stocks of GameStop and was betting against the stocks of GameStop. Now, coming down to the question about Logan Paul, the point of these influencers being labeled as narcissist is because of the big companies which are trying to control over their finance. And in the end, everybody understands that an influencer, to mix his private and personal life, needs a lot of money, and for that he needs investment. And once a person gets into the investment game, the person loses his sight, the person loses of the things he is holding, but rather he's just a puppet for the companies to create controversy and to create money. And that is the only reason why the influencers have a setback, and that is the only reasons why influencers have a tag of narcissist, because of these companies which are just handling them from the behind. With this, I conclude.
Thank you, sir. The house is now open for questions. Saksham, please proceed with your question.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the recognition. Mr. Speaker, you mentioned very conveniently in your speech that when an influencer becomes a narcissist, he starts to lose his audience. But going by your logic, Adolf Hitler would never have been able to gain public support. Going by your logic, all the people who post selfies of themselves would have, who are narcissists on social media, would have followers, and people who would just be promoting social causes would be the most famous people on the internet. But that is not so. So why are you misrepresenting reality and misleading the House? Please clarify.
Mr. Speaker, let me clarify. The most followed account on Twitter is Barack Obama. The most followed account on Instagram is Cristiano Ronaldo. And those people are nowhere who post selfies. Those people are nowhere who post mirror selfies. Rather, those people are the ones who provide substantial matter, are the people who have done something great for other people in their life. And with this faulty assumption talking about Adolf Hitler, nowhere in my speech I mentioned Adolf Hitler. And that is where side proposition has been trying to mislead the House. Side proposition, I want to justify that nowhere in my speech I mentioned Adolf Hitler. Rather, though, I mentioned Adolf Hitler in a question, which does not count as a question because you can only ask questions from the substantial matters of my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dhruv, please proceed with your question if nobody else has a question. Yes, Dhruv, please proceed with your question.
Right. So in your speech, you spoke about how these social media influencers devolve down into narcissistic people because of the companies that are handling them. So number one, don't you think that that takes away the authenticity from the social media influencers in it, that they aren't really being themselves anymore? So that takes it beyond the scope of the debate. B, to humor your side of the argument, let's say it is authentic through the companies and through the management that they have. Doesn't that make them narcissistic anyway? Both sides of the argument defeating your argument.
Mr. Interjected, the point of controlling the influences behind the mask of these corporate companies is business, is profit, and that is what leads to that is what leads to the downfall of these influencers. And I totally agree with side proposition that that these influencers are the ones who are to be blamed for the narcissism, but rather once when it comes to the bread and butter of a person can do anything, and that is what these influencers are doing. These influencers, just to save their bread and butter from those evil corporate companies who are just puppeting them, those people are the one who has to suffer the hatred. Those people are the one who has to suffer the pain and suffer the setbacks as a career as an influencer.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to the end of the order of speakers. However, we still have two speakers left. We have Khushi Goyal and Trinena. So we'll first proceed with Khushi if her camera and microphone are working. Khushi?
Yes, Chair, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you're audible and visible. Please proceed.
Thank you for the recognition, Chair. So the topic on fire is only a publicity hunger narcissist with a personal agenda, and I firmly stand for the motion. Social media influencer is someone who has amassed a following via creative content and storytelling and can influence consumers through social platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, etc. All social media platforms are comprised of a mass of individuals competing against each other for followers, likes, retweets, etc. Before the birth of social media, influencers still existed and they used to influence others for awareness and positive influence. But after the birth of the bad and ugly social media, things changed. Now, influencing is nothing but showing others an avatar of a person one wishes he or she was, instead of being real to the audience they are influencing. Talking about being real, social media honestly has nothing to do with it, since social media is nothing but an ocean full of fake news. Not only fake news, sometimes the origin and the account itself is fake. Very truly quoted by a great person, technology gives in retain but takes in wholesale. We as people try to support fake influencers by following them on their social media handles, and by following them, the least we can expect is their real side. But instead, they make fake stories and tell us fake scenarios only to gain publicity and views. I would like to explain my statement using some recent examples of the so-called social media influencers. Let us now take an example of an ex-Indian cricket team captain who has a huge amount of 33 million followers on Instagram and 2.8 followers on Twitter. People trust these godlike figures and believe in whatever they endorse. But he was endorsing a reality firm and got a hefty sponsorship deal for it. However, in the following years, the common people lost a lot of hard-earned money because the reality firm did not deliver the flats. They felt betrayed by the ex-cricketer. This is just a small example to show how eminent people make their own profit by faking their emotions. When we talk about a narcissist, we talk about a person who has
excessive interest of themselves. And sometimes if a narcissist is not able to gain what they want from social media, they start hating on others' posts and start posting hate comments on others' comment section. As they go out of limit, they can do anything to get attention and views. It drops the confidence of other influencers. Okay, very honestly, I would like to ask you all, don't you all feel when you decide to post something on social media, the thought of what will other comment on my post always strikes your mind? I would like to conclude by another famous example of a food blogger named Gaurav. He helped a person by giving a shout out of his dhaba on his social media handle. Later, many celebrities also tweeted pictures of them having food in the same dhaba, but later Gaurav was accused by the owner of the dhaba as he blamed Gaurav for taking his income in his own bank account. And as you all might have guessed, this accusation was fake. This shows that even a good will is buried by the hungry narcissist of social media. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The house is now open for questions. Ayush, please proceed with your question.
Okay, thank you for recognition. Dear speaker, you mentioned in a speech that social media is ocean which is full of fake news, and I would like to question you as to whether we should get totally cut off from social media or not.
Okay, thank you for your question. So I would like to answer.
Ma'am, will you please?
Ma'am, you've been
click on your-
muted.
So sorry for the inconvenience.
Please.
Social media not always has fake news. There is always a good and bad side for everything. Like I mentioned in my speech, I quoted a very famous quote that said that technology is in retain, but it takes in wholesale. So by retain, I mean that the good influencers who are actually trying to showcase the real world are less in number, but the influencers who are bad, who are just spreading fake news, are larger in number. I'm not telling you to cut off yourself from social media. I'm just telling you to choose wisely to which influencer you choose to follow and which you don't. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanuvi, do we have time for another question?
Yes, we do.
Manya, please proceed with your question.
Thank you so much for the recognition. Thank you, ma'am, for your speech. So you mentioned fake news, and my question is, when you talk about news channels that are politically biased, very often they do not depict news that goes against the government standards or the government's views. And how else do you suggest that people will get correct news if the news channels that are actually supposed to give the correct news are politically biased? So the last resort that people have is social media. And often social media is the only platform where actual awareness about some topics is there. So where do you suggest people should go and get proper news from?
Okay, so as you told that the media is only being fake, so I would like to answer by saying that first they should go and confirm with the sources and then they should listen to the media. If that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. That brings us to the last speaker of today, Trinena. Are you there?
Audible?
Yes, you're audible.
The modern day influencer is only a publicity hungry narcissist with a personal agenda. Good morning to everyone present here. I am Trinana Seka from the Assam Valley School, and I'm proud to propose the motion. The opposition has taken a very black and white stance in the whole scenario, since they have been speaking from the side of social workers and activists mostly, and they don't seem to realize that the human beings are very layered as people. What they're trying to claim is that if you're a narcissist, you cannot be a social worker, and if you're a socially active person, then you cannot be a narcissist. Social influencers have impacted our lives in negative ways and we do not even realize it. These celebrities or social influencers are admired by so many and set all the trends of the society, whether it is negative or positive. The points that I have to prove today in the course of my speech are the keywords of the motion that modern day influencers are publicity hungry, narcissists, and have negative personal agendas that affect the public. So, what is a modern day influencer? An influencer is someone who has the power to affect the purchasing decisions of others because of his or her authority, uh, knowledge, position, or relationship with his or her audience. With this simple definition only, the correlation and the dependency with publicity has been highlighted. Anybody can be an influencer in today's generation and attain celebrity status. So, one big agenda for them is to create a loyal crowd and following in order to attain fame. So, fame is a big personal agenda. You see, these influencers know that they have a product or a brand to sell. In order to do it successfully, they have to create an audience for which they go to any extent, promoting false claims, setting toxic standards, and impacting our lives in many ways than one, regardless of the effectiveness of the product that they are promoting. By the January of 2019, about 3.48 billion people are actively using social media. That's about 45% of the world's population. Inevitably, these people look up to influencers in social media to guide them in their decision making. 74% of these people depend on social networks for guidance in making purchase decisions. Hence, yes, this proves that social media influencers are indeed hungry for publicity because they have a vast audience to bait to, and since their living runs by the validity and the impact they make on these people, their hunger for publicity is a no-brainer. Their high status and lifestyle gets people intrigued by their personality, hence making them a powerful voice. With their attractiveness, expertise, they hold the power of influencing a vast audience based on in one go. Dating back to the 18th century, brands have been using these celebrities in order to endorse their brands. This strategy has been working for ages. Influencers have time and time again been proven to lie in social media, be it the products they're using or the way their picture looks. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you again that these people are being paid solely based on how attractive they look for a living, which most of us are not. Hence, they're constantly in their best physical sense. And what does it say about this behavior of constantly taking pictures and of how great they look and uploading it on social media for millions and thousands so that they can validate them? Yes, it is called narcissism. It is not the worst trait in the world, but when it starts to influence people in a massive way, then it becomes a problem. Speaking of influence, psychologically, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see all the bad qualities that we want to change instead of looking at the good qualities. We look at these people on social media, and if we are not like them, then we want to try to become like them. This has affected us negatively because we are trying to change ourselves to live for these beauty standards. This is where we have created a toxic and unrealistic beauty standard. Many of us have developed serious mental health issues, identity issues, and even body dysmorphia, trying to emulate these beauty standards that they're simply unattainable. In a direct way, in an indirect way, a lot of these celebrities and companies are trying to say that we are just not good enough. Yes, there are exceptions to this rule. There are influencers who are doing their right part in promoting body positivity and healthy living, but they just lack in number. Opposition might argue that the consumer's choice is whether it is a consumer's choice whether or not to follow or look up to these influencers. But let me correct that. Social media is a psychological platform where where things occur because of physical pictures, and even if a person is stable and is in practical conscious decides not to follow them, it is still unconsciously affecting them and their self-esteem and the confidence that we may believe are mindlessly scrolling through such content. Our subconscious is soaking it, and before we know it, these perfectly formed bodies are giving us insecurities. But social media influencers have the word influence on them, so they should be more aware because of the power that they're holding, and they should be more careful about what they're putting out instead of blaming the consumer. So this is my stance. With this, I would like to conclude my arguments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House is now open for questions. Harshita, please proceed with your question.
Yes, the speaker said that there are not enough people who are promoting body positivity and everything. I personally believe that there are many people promoting, there are many people who are influencing this sector of improving our lives and making a social change. So I think we decide on what kind of influences do we want to follow. So would you like to comment on that fact that here the narcissism doesn't play a role, but the way you follow your influencers do?
I think that's a really good question. I think um what you're trying to ask me is that uh, the influence that we're having in our lives, it's based on the content we are consuming. I think that's a very personal decision, and as you've mentioned, there are a lot of people who are trying to uh, promote body positivity and everything. So in case you were previously making a mistake of following toxic influencers, I think you can make a conscious decision to follow someone who does the opposite. As you mentioned, that there are people who are also promoting. So maybe you can make a time decision and maybe make your life better because you're following people who are doing, who are promoting something positive in social media. So I think my answer to that question would be it's about what content you would want to consume. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanvi, do we have time for another question?
No, we don't.
Thank you so much, speakers. That brings us to the end of today's debate. I request the judges to send their score sheets, pictures, or their Excel sheets to the email ID as requested. We'll wait for the judges to send their tabulation sheets, and then we'll proceed with the closing ceremony and the judges and the speeches of the judges. Thank you so much for your patience. Manya, do you have another question?
No, sir, I apologize.
Thank you for your patience, participants and teachers. Now we'll have the speeches by the judges. First of all, I'd like to call Mr. Ritesh Anand to express his views on today's debate. Mr. Anand? I think we'll wait for Mr. Anand to complete his tabulation sheet. Ma'am, Melanie Lobo, if you're free, we'd love if you could express your thoughts on today's debate.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible and visible.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to congratulate each one of the participants. You all have all contributed significantly to the debate, and please remember that is what you must take home with you. only one team can win and only one person can be awarded best speaker. But that is what you must remember, what you contributed to today's debate. It has been a very enjoyable morning, and I would like to thank the school for giving me a chance to judge and be a part of this. I think it's marvelous that while we have faced so many problems with the pandemic, it has opened up new avenues for us to be able to take part in something like this, even when we're sitting far away and not in Missouri. So thank you once again, and well done to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. I will now request Ma'am Jyotsna Brar to present her views on today's debate.
Morning, children and everyone organizing the debate. I'd like to start by thanking La Martiniere School. As I'm the oldest and I retired many years ago, it's given me great joy to go back to school and to be part of a debate. I would like to also thank you, Raj, for being extremely patient and answering my questions over all these past few days. I would like to congratulate Wynberg-Allen School. I would like to congratulate the Debating Society of the school for a very successful debate this morning. All the participants who took part today, they demonstrated some marvelous qualities. They were all people, young people, who read a lot, who thought, who could articulate their thoughts very well. And they are good listeners as well. And I think that's what's going to make all 24 of you extremely special people as you grow up. I am a person who has my own responses to technology, particularly in a debate like this. There were so many disembodied voices making announcements, asking questions at times. We were all so dependent on the ether, a kind of ethereal atmosphere, hoping to connect to the northeast or the south. I marvel at all of you young children because you can speak to a blank rectangle at times. I don't think we could do it when we were in school. Or you can speak to a face which has no torso, or a face which has no stance. You spoke as debaters when we could not applaud or cheer loudly, which was the most exciting part of any kind of public speaking event, and really should be. That's when you know you become an influencer, when you get that feedback. And you can hear the audience cheering, and I really missed that today. If I had my way, I would, I don't want to send you symbols on a chat. I would rather cheer and hoot loudly and clap loudly for each of you. I would like to say about the topic of the debate, who are influencers? Yes, today it is a potential profession, but it's only a potential profession in many different fields. You can become an influencer if you are a young person like you all, with a personality, with thoughts, and with good articulation. But actually, we have so many influencers, newsmen, advertisers, marketers. We have politicians, we have educationists. I'm so glad one of the speakers said a young teacher is an influencer. There are so many influencers who we never see. We don't know whether their bodies are beautiful. They are the people who are strategizing backstage, and they are sometimes more powerful. And those in front are only those who deliver content, not create it, as you all know. But you are people who've created your content, you have delivered it, and it's been marvelous. You all spoke about the proposition. I was a little charmed that not a single speaker said that one of the key words in the proposition was the word only. which is that the modern day influencer is only a publicity hungry narcissist. But I mean, you defined all the other words, but that's okay. And we know that self-confidence and self-belief is not necessarily equal to or synonymous with narcissism. And one can have a personal agenda, which is not money. It can be an ideology. It can be a belief. It can be philanthropy. So, having said all that, every young person who spoke today, each of you has the immense potential to be an influencer. And today I have reason to believe that today's debaters, all of you who spoke this morning, will be influencers with a much larger agenda than only yourselves. God bless you all as you go forward. And thank you again.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable thoughts. I would like to request Mr. Vikrant Sharma next to express his views on today's debate. Sir?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of an event of Wynberg-Allen after so many years. And believe me, it is one of the highlights of at least this year, if not this life, for me right now, personally. Keeping aside the Wynberg-Allen angle, this debate has been a lesson in decency and dignity, the way of conducting arguments, the way of opposing views, the grace and dignity which has been displayed by all of you in putting your point of view forward is something which we all need to learn and follow. I can see a few smiles. I'll just wipe them off in a moment, don't worry. At the same time, I've got a few pointers as far as the debate is concerned. And the reason I'll share with you is because you're mature and sensible people who would be able to accept something which may be unpalatable or something you may not like. And of course, the sadistic reason which I just got right now to wipe off the smile from your face. Point one, 83% of the debates use statistics. Is it safe to assume that this present event consisted of the remaining 17%? Just one person used one statistic out of all 24 of you. There were no allusions. You did not allude to any important events or person in either of the 48 arguments, either of the 24 arguments. 83% is an allusion to the made-up statistic by Barney Stinson in How I Met Your Mother. So there was no allusion used by either of you. While you were decent and nice, not one of you tried, I mean, apart from one person, not one, the remaining 23% did not try to toy with the opposition. Put them down, ridicule them. Of course, you did not have to be loud or aggressive to do it. Just 1% tried to ridicule the arguments put forward by the opposition. You did not toy with them. And you did not try crossing the line by ridiculing or putting down or making the judge feel that they also need to grow in intellect. So I didn't feel threatened or toyed by any of you. I mean, as a debate, I as a person should feel hearing to you all as a person whose belief system, his ability and intellect has been threatened by your arguments and points. Not one of you did it. But now coming to it, there's a thing called destroy the opposition. One of you worked on that? Just one person talked about calling narcissism, I mean, who used the point narcissism is a medical disorder and we can't blindly call any and everybody under the sun as having a mental disorder. Just one person used it. If only, I wish if only that person would have talked about how everybody was labeled dyslexic after the movie Tare Zameen Par came out. You did not, if you could have alluded to it, it would have enhanced your argument manifold. Then there was a question which was asked: would you rather take your news from CNN or a social influencer? Believe me, I would have given you 10 out of 10 incorrectly if you would have mentioned, I would rather trust a Dhruv Rathi than an Arnab Goswami / Ravish Kumar. I mean, whichever side you believe in. So these dove smash moment was something which I mean, I couldn't just say you did not destroy. These mic drop moments did not come from you all. Now, forget destroying the opposition, forget owning the rebuttal. You missed out on the opportunity of distorting the proposition which was presented to you. Modern blah, 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 something was there. You could have always talked about modern in comparison to prehistoric time and historic time. In that way, you could have called Raja Ram Mohan Roy a modern influencer in comparison to the prehistoric times. You could have called Martin Luther King modern. And believe me, if you would have used that thought, it would have helped your argument or got you some of those respect, which I would have wanted to do that. Now, coming to it, there's something which I would like to also point. Being a teacher of English, you are from. Recreation and recreation are two different words. I, Vikrant Sharma, am using this time to drag on and on. I, Vikrant Sharma, is incorrect. So it's I, blah, 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 am, instead of I, blah, blah, is. That's something we need to keep in mind. Also, a lot of you use this platform to put down in social media influencers. And just one person said that is basically a story of Saw Graves. I mean, I've got nothing against see, if I'm not having a healthy relationship with my siblings, who am I try to ridicule the Kardashian sisters? If I cannot ride a scooter, why should I have anything against the lady who's got popularity and fame because she's riding a scooter, the love scooter? I hate Roger Federer because he replaced Pete Sampras. I tried to put down Steffi Graf because she was against Monica Seles. But I would not try to belittle either Steffi Graf or Andre Agassi's achievement because I'm not as good as a tennis player as them. We needed to work more on the word narcissism and all being narcissism. And I wish you would have toyed a bit with me. I wish you would have ridiculed me, my intellect. I wish you would have tried crossing that line. But then that's just some old Vikrant Sharma from a school who liked getting under people's skin. Also, believe me, the opposition to the argument had it very easy with them because they could have always used the argument that you cannot paint everybody with the same picture. You've got 3 students of Wynberg-Allen, at least, whose faces you have seen in this debate. Yuvraj is there, who has been professional. Ma'am Lobo, who's been concise and respectable by everybody who's heard her today. And then there's this old man who is just rambling on and on. But you cannot say that every student from Wynberg-Allen is professional like Yuvraj, or sensible and likable like Melanie Lobo ma'am. or an old idiot like Vikrant Sharma. You did not capitalize on the thing that everybody is being painted narcissist. That's something which I wanted to put down. Getting back to the term, to the topic, sharing my 2 bit, trying to get my 2 minutes under the sun, trying to steal some glory for myself. See, every social influencer is not a narcissist. People are also there to get their glory under the sun. It could be the Kardashian sisters. It could be the lady who's riding the scooter of love. It could be those laborers who are dancing to the old Hindi numbers on TikToks and trying to get popularity. It also includes those ex-principals who are out of jobs, trying to become social influencers to get some money out of becoming social influencers. That's there. Or if they are not able to become social influencers, their spouses starting a cookery channel. Everybody is not a narcissist. It could be a way of earning livelihood or trying to feel some importance or trying to find some meaning in life. Imagine a principal sitting at home in the last 18 months without salary, without job, getting a chance to become a social influencer and talking about this or that. Or if that person is not able to, their spouse is starting a cookery channel and trying to get some views, trying to keep themselves occupied. And yes, I would try to take my 2 minutes under the sun, try to plug in my product as if I myself had been, along with Dr. Sikandar Khan, able to train teachers during the pandemic last year. In the last 6 months, I have been able to train teachers across 6 continents across the globe. The only people we did not train were from Antarctica. Antarctica has 3 schools, but nobody enrolled in our training program. Else, I would have been not having anything to do for this last COVID situation. Those 6 months, it was a lot. So, while the people who are pro the topic did try to make people feel bad or were judgmental in proving that narcissism is a bad thing, so social influences are bad, the opposition to the argument missed out on the fact that not everybody is a narcissist. A laborer dancing to the old Hindi cheesy songs is not narcissist. It's just enjoying the privilege. It's just enjoying the glory which is coming his or her its way. Thank you, everyone. Believe me, not everybody from Wynberg-Allen is professional like Yuvraj or likable and concise and sensible like Melanie ma'am. And of course, nobody and not practically everybody rambles like me. Thank you for your time and everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable thoughts. Mr. Ritesh won't be able to give his speech today because he has an urgent meeting. However, I'd like to request Ma'am Arya to share her thoughts about today's debate. Ma'am? I think Ma'am Arya might be facing some technical issues. We are nearly done with the totaling of scores for the prizes and we'll be back with you shortly. Mr. Singh. Thank you so much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We have the results with us today, so I'll get to that without any delay. For the individual positions, at number 3, we have Ananya Singh of Vantage Hall. At number 2, we have Saksham Goyal from St. Joseph's Academy. And at number 1, as best speaker, we have Dhruv Saraf from La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. These are the individual positions. Best rebuttal goes to Saksham Goyal of St. Joseph's Academy and Pradyuman of La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. The school positions are as follows. In third position, we have Vantage Hall. In second position, we have St. Joseph's Academy, Dehradun. And in first position, we have La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. These are the results for today, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to conclude today's debate with a vote of thanks. I would like to thank the judges today for sharing their valuable inputs and for adjudicating today's debate. I would like to thank the English Debating Society who has stood behind us and who has ensured that this event was a success. But most of all, I would like to thank the participants and the teachers and principals of the participating schools who were cooperative, patient, and ensured that the event today was a successful one. With this, we come to an end of today's first Lumiere Inter-School English debate. Thank you so much, and we'll be sharing your certificates and the trophy to the winning school as soon as possible. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I will now end the meeting.